topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
What's working on purpose anyway? Each week, we ponder the answer to this question. People ache for meaning and purpose at work, to contribute their talents passionately and know their lives really matter. They crave being part of an organization that inspires them and helps them grow into realizing their highest potential. Business can be such a force for good in the world, elevating humanity. In our program, we provide guidance and inspiration to help usher in this world we all want, working on purpose. Now, here's your host, Dr. Elise Cortez.
Hi there. Welcome back to the Working on Purpose program. Thanks for tuning in again this week. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, joining you live from Dallas, Texas, which is home base for me. If you don't know me yet, I'm a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, organizational logotherapist, inspirational speaker, social scientist, and author. My team and I help companies discover and articulate their purpose to thread it through their culture and operations. We work with forward-thinking or forward-reaching organizations to develop inspirational leaders who create cultures where people actually want to come to work and do their best. And we provide programs like the Grab Your Guster that enable individual team members to discover and unleash their passion and purpose at work to catalyze fulfillment, engagement, and productivity. You can learn more about us and how we can work together at elisecortez.com or gusto-now.com. A surprise for you today. With us is a very special guest. We have none other than Santa Ronny Watson, also known as the Praying Santa, who says he's found it one of his hardest yet most rewarding things that he's ever had the pleasure of doing. His wife, Mrs Claus, joined the fun a few years ago, which has made it even more rewarding. They've been everywhere from country clubs, private homes, schools, and even cross-country for the right events. Being Santa Claus is great heart medicine. We'll be talking today about why the spirit of Christmas can and should be lived all year long, and how he and Mrs Claus help keep that spirit alive year-round through their ministry. He's joined today from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Santa Ronny, welcome back to the Working on Purpose show for the fourth time.
Oh, it's so good to see you again, Elise.
It sure is, Santa Ronny. Well, first, let me say thank you for filling in. Melanie Pump was our scheduled guest today, and Melanie reached out to me earlier this morning. She said, Elise, I'm so sorry. I've got my booster shot scheduled. The only time that I can come is exactly when your show is scheduled. No worries. We'll reschedule you for March, and I'm going to call Santa Ronny. So thank you, Santa, for saying yes.
And I got the text that, it was early this morning. So,
yes.
Yeah, it was, God always makes a way for me to step out there and talk about his precepts. Ooh, this is going to be fun. I love it.
I do too. And let's remind our listeners and viewers who haven't heard the story yet of how you and I met, how I like to say I picked you up. So it would have been early December 2016 when you were minding your own business, doing Santa work at a movie theater in Richardson, Texas, outside of Dallas. And that was for the Dallas Opera, which was featuring a children's opera. So, of course, they had Santa Claus there. And seeing you sitting there on your perch, all dressed as you are right now today, I made a beeline for you. And I plopped myself right down on your lap, and I put my arm around your neck like so. And I said, Santa, I have a couple things for you. And you're like, shoot. And I said, Santa, I have been a very good girl this year, and I would like a man.
Yes.
And you said, well, let's talk about that. Are you sure you're ready? And so
Hey,
you and I.
What the name of the show was?
I'll get to it probably. Maybe I'll look it up on.
Becoming Santa Claus.
On Becoming Santa Claus. Thank you. Yes.
That. And,
yes.
And it was great because I had been sitting there talking to your daughter and some of her friends, and they were just gathered around, and they were asking all kinds of questions. Where's the sleigh? Where's the reindeer? How about Mrs. Claus? Did she come? And then here came Elise. She's just right. She said, I just plopped myself down. And she said, and it actually started this way. It's my turn now. And so
you remember that.
And I just looked at, when you said you were interested in finding the the man in your life. And I just said, well, you've already had one, right? And I said, how about we pray for the right man this time? And actually, I think you were taken aback, and you're like, how did you know? And I said, well, I've been talking to your daughter for the last 15 minutes.
I think I can put the dots together. Yeah.
And so anyway, yeah, I was looking for Mr. Right, and he wasn't around. So I agreed. And that's how we met right there. And you asked me to come on your radio show. And so that's been, what, 4 years ago? Is that
No, it's 5 years ago, my dear.
Woo,
back on the patience front, right? Well, the other thing that I remember handily about that is I got so comfortable perched there on my seat, and we were having a philosophical conversation about life and romance and love and everything else. And all of a sudden I felt this jab on my shoulder, somebody pointing on my shoulder, and I looked up, and it was the woman from the Dallas office. She had her hands on her hips, and she said, "Alise, could you get up? There are children waiting to see Santa Claus." Oh, I'm out of here. See you, Santa.
I know. I think I was a prop, for becoming Santa Claus, and it was an opera, and I was, and I felt kind of like a prop. But I don't believe in accidents. I believe that we have a purpose, and when we step out in the right spirit, then that purpose just starts revealing itself as we walk it out, and that's what keeps life amazing. Every day, it's something new. It's something, oh my goodness, really? I get to do this. And so that keeps me young at heart, because Santa's getting a little bit down the road.
Well, let's call that experienced, shall we?
Oh, yeah. I didn't have any wisdom. And that's why I said I read Proverbs for 15 years. So
just kept trying to find the meaning. Well, so let's talk about this. A couple things I want to do on the show. I want to celebrate the spirit of Christmas. And listeners and viewers, that's for whatever your faith is, whatever you observe. It's the spirit of Christmas that we're really talking about here. And absolutely, I love what you said, Santa Claus. Under that, of course, is the purpose piece. And so, what does Christmas mean to you?
I believe, actually, Mrs. Claus and I both, we believe that every day's Christmas. Every day's a gift, and it's to be celebrated. And why would I get high on any other day when I need to be, experiencing that high every day? And sometimes I like to just get in front of the mirror and tell myself who I am, and get my face. Countenance counts, right? Oh, you come in with a grumpy attitude, and you're going to reap what you sow. And so if you go in with a great attitude, and sometimes I had to work that up in the morning. I used to tell kids that joy's like a T-shirt, and you have to put it on every day, and it's perishable. It only lasts one day. That's the way God made it. So we had to get up and make that choice to put on that joy T-shirt, and then I can approach people that some may consider unapproachable. And I like to seek those kind of people out myself.
You've told us that before in this show. You said you like to go after the people that you don't think maybe are reachable.
Well, I just think that they need it, because hurt people.
They sure do.
Sometimes they're the ones that need that encouragement. Just a look right in the eyes, and just say, hey, you know what this means? It means I love you, and just kind of spread that around. But I believe in those cases all the time that the Spirit gives me the right thing to say at the right time, and I just need to get myself out of the way. I can participate in what's really going on here. And that's the spirit of Christmas. And it can be all year long. But some days we just have to work it up. We have to work it up and make that choice not to go out, with a burden. Because the opposite of what I do. They say it's just lies. It's the things that want to bring us down, and it's things that we can't control.
Mm-hmm.
It's things that we have to cast our cares unto God so that He can take care of it, because we can't take care of it, but we carry these burdens like backpacks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I used to sit in boardrooms, and what amazed me was, and I don't know if it's a gift or what, but I could see a person's agenda, and it was like a backpack that they were wearing. And when they walked in the room, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this guy's going to really bring it today,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But he had an agenda, not for, and if you build in a company, you obviously want all for one for all, with the same goals and objectives. So, but a lot of times people don't operate that way. And
so I would guess that that's so beautiful, that sensitivity, intelligence. I gotta believe, Santa, that you bring that with every time you interact with a kid. So I'd love to hear you share a couple stories of, like, if you've gone to schools this year, or where you've gotten to be with maybe a couple kids that you just, something was going on and you got to be there with them.
Yeah, and what's really been tough the last year is with the COVID and outbreak. We haven't been able to go into the schools that we've normally been into.
Mm-hmm.
But my photographers, they have the green screen, and so I can be there in spirit, and I can still pray for those kids, because they've become family to me. It's a couple of schools, and actually that's how I got started. A lady in church asked me, once you do something with this beard, and come. And we've adopted the school in the north side of Fort Worth, and one over by Six Flags. And it was about 1,600 Hispanic children, underprivileged, in need. And so the first time I went there, it was like, oh my goodness, I need to pray for these kids, because some of the things that they were asking me for were just breaking my heart. I was ready to break down, because some things we don't build in the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, how am I going to address these needs that one person can't meet all these needs? There were some that were immediate needs, like one boy asked for a heater, and that was our place. And Mrs Claus, she's like, stop everything. Get somebody, go get this boy a heater.
Right.
And so things like that, if we can do it, we can do it. But if I have a child ask me for one of their parents to get out of prison, their mother or father or both, and just because they want to spend Christmas with them, that's all they want for Christmas. And I'm like, well, Santa gets on his knees every morning, every evening. Do you want to join me? And we'll just be in agreement, and we'll see. I can't think anything more powerful. The Bible says that we have the power to demolish strongholds. So, and we should pray for the people that are in prison.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to love the lovable, isn't it? And we're called to love the unlovable and reach out to everybody. So I think that deepens our care and empathy for others, and it makes us look at them different.
I would agree with that, Santa, Ronnie. And I've had Dr. Arthur Cyril McCauley on the show also 4 times, because he keeps writing interesting books. And he really does talk about the importance of everyone developing empathy, and the world would be such a better place, more peaceful, if we would all just do that. So I love that you're spreading that throughout the year, Santa.
Well, it's, it used to be about what's in it for me before I put on this suit. But now it's what's in it for everybody. When I take care of Santa, everybody gets the fringe benefits. And so it's not selfish, it's a paradox. It's something that looks kind of upside down, but when we do that, then it's true. Everybody does get the fringe benefits. And we don't go through the world like a wrecking ball, but maybe like somebody that's trying to help build something for the future, and something that'll last through the future too. So I would say easy peasy lemon squeezy. It's just one day at a time.
Right. And to that end, Santa Ronnie, let's go to our first break, because to what you just said there is going to cue up what we talk about right after the break. So
Okay.
I'm your host, and we've been on the air with Santa Ronny Watson, also known as the Praying Santa. He just talked about the notion of when he puts on a suit, what that actually does for the world. It's not for him. After the break, I want to share a story about a new tradition that my daughter, who's 18, and I have found for Christmas Eve. We'll start with that after the break. See you then. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us, and welcome back to Working on Purpose. I'd like to invite you, before we get back to the program, to check out my first book that came out in November of 2020. It's called Purpose Ignited: How Inspiring Leaders Ignite Passion and Elevate Cause. I brought it out, actually, and I brought it into the world to awaken people to their passion and purpose and develop inspirational leaders who actually bring people to their greatness. I love it. It's part of what I do in my programs. So I hope you'll check it out with me. If you're just joining the program today, my guest is Santa Ronny Watson, also known as the Praying Santa. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. So as I alluded to before we went on the break there, Santa, I wanted to share with our listeners what you and I had an exchange about on Facebook. And that was that my sweet daughter, who's 18, she's a freshman at Baylor. She came home for the holidays and she said, "Mama, I want to make Christmas cookies on Christmas Eve." I'm like, "Great, fantastic." She goes, "And I want to go bring them to people who might be homeless or in need of some cheer or some help." And I said, "That's amazing." So we iterated that a little bit, and we ended up making fresh turkey cookies, turkey sandwiches, the fresh, decorated cookies. And then we had a water bottle, a sanitizer, a truffle, and a $5 bill. We made just 10 of those. And we set out on Christmas Eve here in Dallas to deliver them. At first, I was worried we're not going to find anybody. Nobody's going to be out. It's so nice and hot here in Dallas. Nobody needs us. So we set out with that whole idea of hoping that we were going to help other people, Santa. And I know you know where I'm going with this. And sure enough, we make our first round past Walnut here in Hill and 75. Nobody's there. Go south, Park Lane in 75. And sure enough, the first person we found is a divorced woman who's she's trying to find her way back on her feet to make it on her own again. A vet who's trying to save some money for his next surgery. So those were the first two people. We had this amazing conversation with them. But later, we ended up getting rid of all of the packs. But the third person that we delivered to, Santa, really just stole my heart. And so when we came up to him, we'd seen him, and we pulled the car around to make sure we could actually get to him. We stopped the car at the light, rolled the window down, and said, "Hey, we made this sandwich and these cookies for you." And his face just filled with emotion, and he just started sobbing. His shoulders were just rocking as he sobbed, and as he smiled, I could see that he had hardly any teeth left. And he gave us such a beautiful thank you that it was beyond profound. And so, of course, I was in a pile of tears by that, just in a moment, right? So was my daughter. And it was the most beautiful thing. So to your point, we set out thinking we were going to help these other people, but that's not what happened. They helped us. They lifted us in their graciousness, their gratitude, their friendliness, the connectivity that we had in just those moments. So I can't imagine what it must be like to be Santa Claus.
Oh, yeah, it's like that 24/7. And I'm just reminded of the, axiom that those one-liners, I always say they stand the test of time because they're loaded with truth, right? And when you're telling me that, I was just thinking of, it's better to give than receive.
It's amazing.
Right? Isn't it?
It's true.
and that encounter you had with that third person, that's God's economy, because I tell people, you know what I love about hugs? Whenever you give one, you get one. And that's God's economy, and people need hugs like that. People, some people go through their lives, they might not ever have been hugged. Some of the schools I go into, the abused children that are in these special classes that are darkened because they, noises and things like that can send them over the edge, and you can't even come close to them, much less give them a hug. And they might not ever have had that or experienced that. So it is better to give than receive. And that's what keeps me going, is to be able to give, and to not just give the presents, because presents, I can't remember what I had when I was 5 or 6, but I can remember the people and the times and the atmosphere. I can remember those things. And so if I can plant, putting on the suit carries a lot of responsibility. I always tell you that words have power, and that we can use words to encourage and build up others in the right way, and we can maybe take the pressure off. I told people I've done away with the naughty list.
Oh, good.
I
was worried.
Hey, he's already paid for it. And so if he's paid for it, then, thank goodness. Otherwise, we'd all be on the naughty list forever, right? And man, that would be bad. And I tell people that. And it's like lifting a burden, and not just the kids, but the parents that are standing in the background. They get it too. And sometimes I wonder about the discussions on the way home. Santa said there's not a naughty list anymore, Mom and Dad. So, that elf on the shelf, I don't, I'm kind of like, just make your yes a yes and your no a no. And that way, it's like you set the boundaries and don't move them. I believe that it's inhumane to have boundaries that move and change all the time. And I think that's what confuses children sometimes, is they don't know when the hammer's going to come down, or, when the nice dad's going to be home, or the nice mom, or the one that's not burdened with too many things. Here's an axiom for you: less is more. And it is. I really believe that the less we have, the more we have, the more we can take care of. We're not made to be multitaskers. We're made to really focus on one thing at a time. And children ask me, hey, what's my elf's name? And I'm like, I don't name them. At the North Pole, when I talk to them, see these right here, I look them right in the eyes and I say, hey, elf, because they all want to be called elf up there. And then when I with you give them a name, so I don't know what name it is. And they're like, oh, okay. You got to have an answer for every one of them. They're always trying to trick you.
Got to stay on your toes, Santa.
I had some at the school the other day asked me, what's my name? What's my name? I'm like, have you written a letter to me yet? And they're like, no. And I'm like, how am I supposed to know what your name is if you haven't written me a letter? I'll know your name, okay?
It's called fast dance and fast foot for you.
Oh, it's just, you just have to be ready, because, it takes all kinds, right? And in a cross section of society, it's, you have the wallflowers, you have the extroverts, the introverts, you have all those, and you just have to be ready. And that's why I say you have to have the right spirit, the right countenance, so that, you don't act like what was that show with the Red Ryder BB gun? Ho ho ho, go on. And
not the Miracle on 34th Street. That's not that one, right?
What is it? Christmas Story? The Christmas Story with the Red
Okay,
Ryder.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
Oh, you'll shoot your eye out, kid. But anyway, And he was the mall Santa. He's a little grumpy sometimes.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's why I try to keep that countenance in my spirit. But the other thing is, laughter heals like a medicine. And that's why I love to laugh. And I've worked on my countenance for years and learned how to unload things that used to burden me, and now they don't. And I think even in business, they call it value added versus non-value added.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned how to identify things that really add value and to laugh. And always said I had a living problem, I think, when I was younger and not so wise. And now that I've gotten older, that hindsight's 2020, correct? So we can look back and see that some of the things that we used to do are not who we are anymore. And we see things that are more valuable now with different eyes. So I love giving to the children and watching their little eyes when I plant those seeds go ding, and I can see hope come back in
Mm-hmm.
the future when I saw nothing in those eyes, and I saw a child with their head down and like they were just beaten down verbally, So I just try to lift people up, and grown-ups need it too.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
don't.
learned.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know that because you reminded me as we're talking. I just have to share because you said grown-ups need it too. Years ago, when I was very involved in the Lakewood Service League here in Dallas, we went to go gather the Christmas wishes of this retirement community at Juliet Fowler Homes.
Mm.
And when we walked in, Cindy, who I knew, the manager, she said, "Elise, if you're going to get a list, go and talk with." I don't remember the woman's name, but let's call her Mrs. Jones. So I went and sat with Mrs. Jones and I said, "Hi, I'm Elise. I'm here with Lakewood Service League, and I'm here to learn what you'd like for Christmas, and we'd like to see if we can go fulfill your wish and talk with Santa, etc." And she said, "Oh no, I don't need anything, but ask Charlotte next door. I know she needs a sweater." So I sat down with her and I spent a little time with her, and in that time, Santa, I learned. She told me the whole story. She said, "Do you see that picture over there? That's me. I'm actually holding my 4 children. I'm holding the 4th one up because he has polio and he can't sit by himself." And then she goes back, she tells this whole story of how she had polio when she was a child. And she said, "My father worked 3 jobs to put me through school. Do you think you'll ever know how much I appreciated him?" And she went and told this whole story. And guess what's happening as she's telling the story?
Well,
I'm over here in a big pile of sobbing tears, taking this whole thing in, right? And she looked at me at one point and she looks at me kind of curiously and she said, "Oh." And then she wheels over, she's in a wheelchair, wheels over and gets a Kleenex box for me and puts it on my lap. And she said, "Yeah, we don't cry when we get to my age. We don't need to anymore. We've already done all that." And she's kind of wiping at my tears. But I was so moved by her story.
yeah,
And to your point, what she got out of that is she got to listen, somebody to listen to her. And, she told her story and I was hanging on every single word. And so, yes, to your point, adults need it too. Adults need to be ministered to. They need to be listened to, need to be loved, understood, sought after, given hope to.
yeah.
So completely agree with you, Santa, which is probably a big reason why I made a beeline for you.
Oh, even more so, I think sometimes the grown-ups that, the thing that I noticed that the older we get, sometimes the harder we get. Even the Bible talks about, don't let your heart get hard. And I see those people that are not that they're mean, but that they're protecting, that they just shut everybody out, because the world is just beating them down so much, whether it's finances or relationships or whatever. And but I'm also reminded that it says above all else. So that must be an important statement. Above all else, guard your heart, because everything that you do flows from there. And that is the truth. If we are hard-hearted, then we can be mean and snippy. But if we soften our heart and have that empathy for others and look outside of ourselves, then it becomes more real. The things around us. a spiritual battle going on out there. We can either get into it, or we can sit on the sidelines and cheer for the ones that are, or just sit on the sidelines and become hard. So it's just a daily choice for me, and I know that I can't be Santa Claus kids without doing it the right way, because that's the reason for the season. This is what Christmas is all about, is the giving and the gifts and what he gave for us, the ultimate gift, so that we could just live free, live a real life, the life of Zoe that satisfies, not things. Things don't satisfy. I told a guy one time, I'm like, see all this right here? It's part of the dirt pile, and it's going back in the ground one day. Maybe not while we're here, and they're like, and that was in a boardroom too. And they're like, oh, you can't. I said, don't the pyramids mean anything to you? We can mitigate, but we can't eliminate, because we're not the chosen one. We can't make things perfect. Even it don't matter how hard we try, we'll never make perfect. But advancing, that's the key. It's just continue knowing that you can't make things perfect, but you can make things better, that you can mitigate some problems and encourage others. So.
Yes. And to your point, Santa, in the work that I do inside organizations, you said something about, people softening or whatever. I know when I meet somebody who still needs softening, somebody that still needs to heal, right? Because as you said, hurt people hurt people. Yes. So it shows up writ large when someone really needs to be helped and healed, in how they lead, how they treat people, how they develop people, how they instruct people, etc. So I think maybe in some ways I've developed some Santa sense as I've worked with organizations, and maybe, our friendship has rubbed off. But so I'll thank you for that now, and maybe my clients will thank you too.
Hey, I'll give you a little advice. If you want to do that, carry some peppermints with you. That helps.
Why?
Soften it, and here, I got a peppermint for you. And everybody, wants a peppermint, and it just kind of opens the door. It takes, maybe this is a safe place that you got just going to give me a peppermint, and then you look them in the eyes and you give them a big smile. And sometimes that eye connection, you'll know when the door's open, and you'll know when to. Like me, Mrs Claus, she has permission to kick me in the shins because I talk too much.
I can't reach you. So
anyway, that spirit, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. And so listening is part of adding value in people's lives. And it's like you listen to that person's story and just, it put you right in the middle of it. I think about how I love to read books, and the pictures that our mind can paint in reading these books, and then a movie comes out about it. I'm like, that wasn't
nearly as good as what I conjured in my mind. Yes.
And when somebody's telling us their story, and we're really listening to it, and we don't have an agenda to interject or the man thing is like, let me get my toolbox out and I'll help you fix that. No, they just want you to listen sometimes and just be there, because nobody's ever listened to them.
I've learned that. Yes, I've learned.
That's awesome.
I've learned that after almost 7 years on this show. So speaking of that, let's grab our last break here if we can. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We're on the air with Santa Ronny Watson, who is known as the Praying Santa. We've been talking a bit about connections and memories related to Christmas. After the break, I'm going to see if he'll tell us one more time just how he became Santa Claus. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us and welcome back to Working on Purpose. Before we go back to Santa Claus here, I want to share one other bit of news with you. I have been curating over the last couple of years an anthology. It's a collection of 25 stories from women across the world who share their intimate stories of how they discovered their purpose and are now serving from it. Here it is. It's so beautiful. I'm so proud of it. I could just bust. It's called Passionately Striving and Why, an anthology of women who persevere mightily to live their purpose. It's on Amazon, and I hope you take a look at it. I'm just so proud of it. If you're just joining us, my guest today is Santa Ronny Watson. He's known as the Praying Santa. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. So I purposely dangled that in front of you before the break, so you could think about that. I happen to know the story of how you became a Santa Claus, but those who were listening may not have heard it. So will you tell us, Santa Ronny? I know there's a beautiful story. Give us the real meat of it, how it is that you decided and were invited to become Santa Claus.
Well, it's really started with the beard, and the beard came about from my first grandchild was she was adopted by my oldest son, and she called me Big G, and she had my heart, right from the get-go. And I remember, I'll never forget, she looked at me and she's like, Big G, you can never shave your beard. And I'm like, hey, whatever you say, you got it. So, and it wasn't long after that I think I told you the lady in the church asked me to. She works for a credit union. They adopt those schools, and they take presents. I mean, a gym full of presents, and they have games set up in there for the kids, and it's just an all-day game and Santa Claus. And then they have to get pictures with me sitting on, them sitting on my lap, and a photographer, his name's Billy Buttons, and he's a great guy, and he makes a button, and they can wear that picture of them in Santa Claus, and it might be the only picture that they get, because they just don't have a lot of money there. So, and that kind of one thing led to another, but my granddaughter, she's the one that started with the beard and everything, and so it was just a matter of, I've always been had a servant's heart, and always been a leader, whether in business or whatever. And I always told, I have 2 children, and I said, every day life's going to throw a bunch of things at you every day. Sometimes you may have 50 decisions to make, sometimes 150, sometimes 1,000, and you're going to have these decisions. But if you just take the high road at every decision, then you don't have to look back, and you don't have to carry baggage with you. And like I think Judge Judy says, if you just tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory. And that's that carrying that extra baggage with you. If we start taking the wrong turn, or if we start looking for what's in it for me, but we're put here to serve one another, and I really believe that's why we're here.
I do too.
I believe that in that's where life lives. That's where the peace and the joy, and it all lives right there. I talked to a missionary guy one time, and he was a Lone Ranger mission guy with a family in the middle of Africa. And I asked him, I said, how do you do that? How you could be like kidnapped and murdered. He goes, wherever peace is, that's where God is. That's where I stay. He goes, if I walk in a place and the hair stands up on my arm, I just back out and go to the last place I had peace. So, he had some amazing stories about what he was doing over there, but it's the same thing over there that it is here. And we're so blessed in this country that that's why I say less is more. And I always say the telephones, and they're great for work and things, but for personal relationships, I want to sit down face to face like this. I love seeing you here, but I'd a lot rather see you face to face.
Yeah, or in my studio or in my dining room. We've done shows and all.
Well, so our body, what is that? 90% of communication is body language. The rest of it's just our words. So, and I think, like I told you, the boardrooms, that's why I could tell, look at this guy, he's bringing something that I don't know. And I also learned that, the smartest one in the boardroom is the last one to speak. So, there's a lot of people that have those agendas. They just come in and just start throwing darts and see what sticks. But when we work for one another, and I even played on some sports teams whenever I was younger, and we weren't, super talented, but we played as a team, and we pulled for one another. We encouraged one another. Got having a bad day, then we're like, hey, it's okay. Just keep going, keep going. And I think you talk to a lot of sports guys, and they're like, if they have a workout partner, somebody there that can encourage them, oh yeah, come on, we can do one more. Let's just do one more set, And it helps you. And it helps both of you to keep going. It motivates you. So we don't do good alone. We don't do good by ourselves.
We're social animals. And that reminds me of another story that I need you to tell. I just was thinking about this.
Yes.
I remember distinctly, it probably was the second time you were on, and Mrs. Claus came, and I asked her during the break, what else should we talk about? And she said, oh, get him to talk about what happens during the off season when he's walking through parking lots and children see you. Tell us what happens when those children, what happens in the encounters, and what do they say, and what do you say back?
Well, and I remember we had that lady from California. She called in one time. I didn't know Santa had a Texas accent. And I said, darling, we're in the middle of Texas, okay?
Darling, I know I say darling too.
And anyway, it was, but during the off season, matter of fact, I got dressed up for the show today. So
I appreciate that.
I hung everything up, but I put my Carhartts on, and I put on my sunglasses. And that's my disguise, and so my wife loves for me to go shopping with her, and whether we go to the grocery store or wherever, kids, they just start, they see that big beard, and they'll start dragging their mother across the parking lot. It's Santa Claus! It's Santa Claus! And so I'm about 6'3". And I know it's very important not to tower over a child. So and it's getting harder, but I always get down on my knee and look out, out in the middle of a parking lot. And I carry peppermints. And so I asked the mothers, okay if I give them peppermint? They're like, yeah. So, but when I finish talking to the child, I usually get up and give the parent a peppermint too. So, it's not, like I say, it's not just for the kids, but the kids drag their parents into it. I just love to see their smiles when it changes their whole countenance. Whenever you just they see something like that, their kid's excited, and then they get excited. And I love to see that. I love to, a grumpy checkout lady that's having a very bad day, just look her in the eyes. And, tell her, hey, I'm the praying Santa. You need me to pray for anything, I'll pray for you. And, I just want to tell you, I did that one time in Walmart, just the neighborhood Walmart. And this lady, I prayed, there was this black woman and her daughter standing right there at the checkout. And it was just like, in my heart, I was like, I need to pray for this girl. And the mother was talking to me, you're Santa Claus, and da, da, da. And I said, yeah, and I'll pray for your daughter right here. And he's here with us. I'll just put an amen on the end of that. The next year, I was on Mrs. Claus put me on a keto diet. So,
Mrs. Claus.
and she said, I run down to the store, grab some milk and eggs. And I was like, okay. So I go down there and not thinking, I grab a basket and walk back and I grab the milk and the eggs. I'm like, what do I have a basket for? And it was like, I couldn't leave. It was like something else was there. And I kept walking up and down the back aisle. And every time I walk, the signs that say what's on this aisle, every time I walk by the cracker aisle, it was like a neon sign, like just blinking. And I'm like, crackers? I'm on keto diet. I can't have crackers. I haven't had a cracker in a year. And so finally I walk down that aisle. I'm just standing here looking at the premium saltines, okay? And all of a sudden, this lady taps me on the shoulder. And I turn around, and I mean, the hair just stood up on my arm. She goes, you don't remember me? And I said, yes, I do. And she goes, do you believe in divine intervention? I said, yes, absolutely. I said, you prayed for my daughter last year, and she got worse. And I'm like, uh-oh. But she hit her bottom. And oh my goodness, she has done a 180-degree turn. And I'm telling you, me and this lady, we were standing in the middle of that cracker aisle, just hugging. And I didn't know her met her one time a year ago. And at the end of that, I said, I always say, never miss the irony of God, right? And at the end of it, I'm like, ma'am, hope you don't mind me asking this, but what do black people call white people? And she goes, crackers? I'm like, I've been standing by these crackers for 5 minutes wondering what I'm standing here.
What a great way to finish.
Are you kidding me? What? Oh my goodness. And so we never know. We never know the
message is disguised.
What's going to happen? Just that one encounter. And, I don't know if I'll ever see her again, but man, there was so much joy in that aisle that day. And people were probably looking at us like, what are them crazy people doing?
What a great way to finish the show, Santa Ronnie. We already went through the whole time, if you can possibly believe that, but I can't think of a better way to finish. It was worth the whole price of admission is to hear that last story. Thank you, Santa Ronnie.
This means, right?
You said it means I love you.
I love you, Elise. And God says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And then love your neighbor as yourself. And I think sometimes we don't love ourselves enough to get out there and think we don't have anything to share. But I'm telling you right now, you have plenty to offer to another human. And it's not in things, but in attitude. And it starts with that gratitude, just being grateful for what you have. Nobody can take that from you. Mm-hmm. They'll try. They will try, and that's nonstop, but we have the strength and power because we know what it feels like to be on that side of giving instead of taking. Hey, I love you, Elise.
Love you too, Santa. Thank you for coming back. And who knows where the road takes us from here. So thank you, Santa Ronnie, for joining us yet again, a 4th time. Let's see what happens for a 5th round. If you want to learn more about Santa Ronnie and Mrs. Claus, well, the best place to find them, of course, is at the North Pole. If you can't catch them there, however, then check out Facebook at Ronny Watson or Annette Kuban Watson. It's Kuban, Annette Kuban Watson. Last week, if you missed the live show, you can always catch a re-recorded podcast. We were on the air with Greg Milano, author of Curing Corporate Short-Termism. And we talked about how to create cultures of ownership that drive long-term innovation and financial performance. Next week, we'll be on the air with Marshall Mosher, the CEO of Vestigo, talking about how virtual reality connects remote teams to learning what comes from diving off with wild abandon that can only come safely with virtual reality. See you there. Remember that work is at least a third of our life, so let's work on purpose.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's program. Be sure to tune into Working on Purpose, featuring your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, each week on W4CY. Together, we'll create a world where business operates conscientiously, leadership inspires impassioned performance, and employees are fulfilled in work that provides the meaning and purpose they crave. See you there. Let's work on purpose.